Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. In the previous several videos, we looked at the concept of indexing and how it helps performance for SQL Server. Continuing with that concept of performance now, we're going to look at the concept of indexes and how to utilize indexes and how they help performance. So before we get into that, let me quickly give you an analysis of what statistics are. As you certainly know, statistics are basically a gathering of information about a specific event. So just like a tennis match or a football match or a soccer match, you have clubs obviously running statistics against their players of how many goals they've made, how many saves they've made, in terms of tennis, how fast a tennis player is serving, how many returns they are doing with backhand and forehand. So all this gathering information for the various sports obviously are a gathering of statistics. And once you have that knowledge of statistics and that gather of information, you can make better decisions as to the outcome. So in the same manner, the SQL server uses statistics to gather information about data retrieval. And it basically hands that, if you will, to what's called a query optimizer, which actually utilizes the statistics to determine what is the best way to retrieve data based on what statistics has been given. So now that we've kind of understand what statistics are, let's go into a little more deeper what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be briefly talking about, and these are relatively complex subject matter, if you will, and they're a lengthy subject, but I'm going to be giving you a brief introduction to them so you at least have a tacit understanding of them when you're in discussion. And I would certainly encourage you to read a lot more than I'm going to give you about this, because this is a large subject, but again, for our purposes, this is going to be fine. So we're going to be talking about what is the query optimizer, its function, what are SQL statistics, how it helps performance, how you create statistics, how you view them, and some of the best practices in maintenance of statistics. So let's continue. So as you know, a query is a request for information from a database. Now this can be either a simple select statement or a complex request such as multiple joins. Now, since the database structures are complex and need to access the data can be achieved in different ways, such as they can use a table scan or an index, the processing time to get that data may vary from SQL, and they may need help to retrieve the data. So since there are multiple ways, if you will, to retrieve the data, whether you're using a table scan or non-index cluster or cluster index, SQL has to make that decision, or query optimizer has to make that decision, is better. What is the best way of retrieving that data? And this is where statistics comes in. Statistics in SQL Server refers specifically to information that the server collects about the distribution of data in column and indexes. So once you create an index, statistics are based on those indexes, and then they're handed to SQL Optimizer, which makes the best decision of retrieving that data. And we'll be seeing that in a second. So this is where the query optimizer comes in. A quick note, the query optimizer part of the SQL engine can't really be directly accessed by users. But the query optimizer attempts to determine the most efficient way to execute a given query by considering all query plans, such as should you use a table scan or should you use the index. And it finds the best path in trying to find the most optimum query to retrieve that data. Now, some of the information that the factors that are based on are such as the number of records, the density of pages, the histograms, and available indexes. All this data is gathered by the statistics and handed off, if you will, to the query optimizer to make a best decision in data retrieval. So let me quickly just put it a little succinctly, if I can. And that is that statistics, SQL statistics' primary purpose is to gather information about the query that you're about to execute or will execute. And then once it's gathered all that information, depending upon if it's a creation of an index, then it hands that information to the query optimizer, which says, okay, now that you've given me an index, now that you've given me all this information, and you've requested a query, what is the best path to retrieve that data? So that's in a nutshell what those two are going hand in hand. So let's continue, and then I'll be demonstrating that in a second. So how are statistics created? Well, when you create an index, statistics for that index are automatically created, and I'll be demonstrating that for you in a second. So, and the other reason is that the other thing is that statistics are created. They're created automatically, actually, by SQL Server, and I'll be showing you that in a second where that property exists. Say it says CMS, I'll be doing that. Now, you can obviously create indexes manually using T-SQL or through a GUI, and I'll be demonstrating that to you also. And here's the command. A couple other things to note: how are statistics updated? The default settings of SQL is auto create and auto update statistics, meaning that the property of SQL is set by default to auto create and update automatically. So basically, you don't have to intervene in the creation of index statistics. When you create an index, statistics are automatically updated. A couple of things to note: that as you constantly enlarging your database and database tables, then obviously statistics need to be updated also. So you may need to drop and recreate statistics depending on the index. And again, if you drop an index or rebuild an index, then static statistics are automatically created for them, so you don't need to do that. But in the bottom, the best way to understand it is this is something that you don't really need to do per se or intervene. SQL is pretty good at updating statistics. So what are the configurations should you set? Again, automatic statistics. And I'll show you that in a second. By default, again, SQL automatically creates and updates statistics, and this gets stored. And this is the kind of information it's gathering: the number of rows and pages occupied by the table, the time the statistics were updated, the average length of keys, and the histograms. And again, as I said, this is pretty a complex area, but I want to give you a slight understanding of it, so when you're in discussion with it, you can at least navigate towards Google and try to get a little more information about this. So now that we have a kind of a slight academic understanding of what statistics are, what is the role of Query Optimizer, and how they work together, let's actually get into it, and let's look at on SQL Server. So you'll note that I'm going to be using AdventureWorks 2012. And what I'm going to do now is create an index. And when creating an index, the statistics are created automatically. So I'm going to use this database. And I'm going to create a index, a non-cluster index on people to table. So if I expand this, and go to people to, and go to index and refresh it, you'll see there's no index. And if I click on statistics, there's no statistics. Now, as soon as I create this non-clustered index, you'll notice that statistics are based on that. Now, what it's doing is in the background, statistics is gathering information about this non-clustered index. And if I refresh this, you'll see the index created. And if I refresh the statistics, you can see that. Now, if I double click, you can actually view the statistics, if you will, and look at the details. This is obviously the creation of details if you want to do it through a GUI. Obviously, the statistics are based on first name, last name, statistics column. This is the query. This is the clustered index. If you go to details, actually, you can actually see the statistics. Now, again, as I mentioned, I don't want you to get into the complexity of this, but you can certainly read this again. But it's the non-clustered index has been created, as you can see, and statistics, and this is the statistics as there is gathering of information. And I'm not going to go into this because this is a little more complex, and I'll be delving this into when we talk about database management views, which are a little more efficient ways of looking at statistics. But this will give you an idea of what to look for, and you can do a little more research on your own. But again, this is the information it's gathering, if you will, that will help the Query Optimizer in determining what is the best way to retrieve the thing. So view the statistics via GUI, which I did. Alternative ways which you can kind of gather information is using a dbcc show statistics command, followed by table name, followed by the index name here, or the statistics. And if you go highlight this, and again, this will be provided for you. Again, it gives you that information we just kind of saw. And again, I encourage you to look at this kind of a result set and get some more information on it. Now, obviously, you can get all the statistics being maintained by a table by using this SP Help stats protocol, store procedure. So if you just copy this, put the name, all, and if you highlight it, it'll give you the statistics name and the statistics key that it's based on. So this is how you use a statistic. And what is the benefit of having statistics? Now, it's important that statistics be updated. And as I said, that let me actually show you. Go right-click, Properties, go to Options. And this is what I was referring to when you talk about auto-update statistic. It's set to a true value. So this will automatically update the statistics when you drop or rebuild indexes. And so you want to leave that as true value. And that's it. So I think I'm just going to leave it here because I don't really want to get into it too complex. But as I said, I want you to introduce you to the concept of what a query optimizer is and how statistics play an important role in performance. The more current statistics you have, the better decision that the query optimizer can make in retrieving the data. And all this helps in performance. All this helps in gathering and getting data to the end user faster. So this is an important concept to understand. And again, I encourage you to certainly learn more about this than I've introduced here. But again, this will be a stepping stone. So I think I'm going to leave it here. And my name is Rafael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.